So we'll read together. Karturajnaya prapyate phalam karma kim param karma tajjadam kritimaho dadhau patana karanam phalamashashvatam gati nirodhakam Ishwararpitam nechaya kritam chittashodhakam mukti sadhakam kaya vangmanaha karyamuttamam pujanam japaschintanam kramat. So this is where we are. We are in verse number 4, Bhakti Yoga. So last week we talked about what bhakti means. Bhakti means that love directed to something higher, that is called bhakti, or we translate it as devotion. And we talked about how we have so many different relationships in this world, but we often forget our relationship with God, the most important one ever, because God has been there with us throughout. And granted, it is difficult to connect to God because that concept of God is very subtle. It's not like a person right in front of you that's there, that you can meet, that you can hang out with. It's a very subtle concept. So it becomes difficult to connect to God. So in verse number 4, this whole sadhana is given to us. Sadhana means spiritual practice in order to connect to that God. Where's that God? Within. And this sadhana consists of 3 paths, or 3 different types. Here in verse number 4, we have puja, japa, and chintanam. Chintanam can also be dhyanam. And he says here, kaya vang manaha. So puja, the idea of puja is it's done with all 3. It's done with the body, kaya, vak, speech, and manaha, mind. It's done with all 3. It uses all 3 equipments. Japa uses 2 equipments. It uses the speech, vak, and manaha. Chintanam, dhyanam, or contemplation is primarily using the mind or manaha. So like this, the sadhana becomes from gross to subtle. So that's why this word kramat is there. Kramat is to say that this is the order of the sadhana, and uttamam is to say that the dhyanam is the most sublime, is the most subtle. And what else is said here? Karyam. Karyam means it is to be done. We have to do it to be able to connect to that Bhagavan. So now today, last time we saw what having that relationship with God means. Now we will see what exactly is puja. So first we'll take a look at puja. What is puja? So, we've seen so many different ways of puja and ways to conduct it. But that puja is actually making that God concrete and appear in front of me. Because as I said, that relationship is so subtle, right? How do you form a relationship with someone you've never seen, someone we've never been around? How do we form that relationship? So our rishis gave us the most beautiful method and said, invoke the presence of that God in this idol, in this deity. And concretizing that God or seeing that God in actual form, that is called puja. It is the way by which I can physically see that God and physically worship that God. That is puja. Because we have that tendency to want to see, to want to feel. And so that puja is there. Now, what kinds of puja are there? So many different kinds of puja. The main puja that we do is Shodashopachara puja. It means the one with 16 steps. So 16-step puja. But there are many pujas. There is, Satyanarayan puja. There's a puja when somebody gets married. There's a puja when somebody gives birth. There's a puja when we come into a new home. So there's so many different kinds of puja. But the one that we're going to focus on is this Shodasho Upachara Puja. It means Shodasha means 16, Upachara means the 16 method, 16 step puja. Now, so that is an examples of puja. Now, before we explore that 16 step puja, or before we take a look at it, what is the puja for? That's also very important. So sometimes people have puja so that they can get a child. And they'll have puja because they want to get a child. They'll have puja because they want success in their business. Especially Diwali is coming. So now many people will do puja because they want financial success. But you know, in our Vedanta, whenever we do puja, we ask for these three main things: jnana, bhakti, vairagya. Knowledge, devotion, and dispassion. So that puja is meant to be actually of a sattvic nature. It's meant to ask for these three things or whatever positive qualities that we want. Remember, there are four kinds of devotees in the Bhagavad Gita: Artha, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Jnani. Artha is the one who prays to God at the time of distress. And we all do it, oh my goodness, God, help us. We don't know what's going to happen. Please, 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 please. That's called Artha. Artharthi is the one who prays to God because they seek some material thing. They use God to get some material thing. So I want, I want a lovely home. I want to get married. I want a good career. I want this person to leave the job so I can finally, be better. Artharthi. Jignasu means someone who's very curious, who's seeking God because they're like, who is God? What is God? They just want to make this intellectual inquiry into what is God. That jnani is seeking God because they want to know who God is. They want to be with God. They long for God. They crave for God. This is called jnani. And not only do they crave for God, but they crave for the values, for the knowledge to get them to God. So when we do puja, that is what we're supposed to pray for. So sometimes when we pray to God, first of all, when we pray to God to relieve us from sorrow, what happens? This sorrow will be removed, then another sorrow will come. What will we do? Again, pray to remove that sorrow. That solution doesn't really work. It's not logical. Artharthi, if we're praying to seek God for this, the whole time we're using God. We're using God, please get me this. Please get me this. Please get me this. We're using God to get to the world. You see this? This is called Artharthi. We're using God to get to the world. Jignasu is the one who's just constantly inquiring about God, but there's no bhava there. Just seeking what is God, who is God, where does this God come from? But that jnani is using God to get to God. Using God to get to God. God, give me whatever knowledge, whatever devotion, whatever values. Give me all of that so that I can get to you, not so I can go somewhere else. When I pray to God to get to God, that is the dearest devotee to God. Everybody else is dear also because they remember God at least. God is saying at least they're remembering me, so okay. But the dearest devotee is the one who prays to God for God. Now that is the most beautiful thing. So when we do puja, the attitude is supposed to be, I pray to God for God. Because why? When I get God, I get everything. And this is what we don't understand. We want wealth, we want career, we want peace, we want family, we want love, we want all of these things. So we seek these things. But little did we know that if we get God, everything will just come to us. It will just come. You don't even have to ask. And that's the beauty of it. We don't have to go anywhere, do anything. You just pray to God, be single pointed in God, and everything will just come to you. And that's the most beautiful thing. So that is what we pray for. We pray to God for God, and everything just comes. There is that famous story I told the children once, no? This king and this minister, and they were riding in the forest. They were going on their chariot in the forest. And what happened is it was very, very, very hot, and it was lunchtime. And so they were very hungry. They needed, and there was no food there. There was no food. It was very hot. It was lunchtime. The horses were tired. Everybody was tired. So they decided, let's rest. So the king said, now, what will we do? How will we get food? So that minister said, I just want to sit and I just want to do my sadhana. I just want to pray. But the king said, but how will we get food if you're going to sit there and pray? And so the king said, the minister said, it will come. Somehow it will come, but I just want to, sit down. Because that minister was a Brahmana kind of personality. So the king said, okay, I'm hungry. I will go get food. And so the king went to the village, walking to the village, and everybody was so stunned, because the king has come to the village. The king has come to the village. Everyone was so stunned. And so the king, said, can you please give me some food to eat? So of course, everyone's houses were open for the king, and so they started making some fresh food, some dal chawal, whatever, for this king. And so he ate, and he was so, so happy. And as he was eating, he said, can you please pack me some? I have to give it to my minister. They said, of course, we'll pack it for you. So then he took it. He ate very, very well. And he went back to where the minister was. The minister was nicely sitting down, closing his eyes. And the king says, oh, minister, wake up. I have some food for you. And so the minister said, thank you so much. And he opened that tiffin and he started eating. And the king said, you see what happened? I went and I got food. And it's because of that you're eating. If I didn't go out and get food, then how would you eat? I don't understand what's your logic. And the minister said, listen, I just went into God. I just prayed to God. And look at this. The king himself brings me lunch. What is this? How is this that the king himself brings me lunch? I don't even have to go to get food. Food comes to me. And by whom? That very king. The wonder of wonder. This is God. This is what the minister says. Now see this beautiful story. That when one's mind is complete, this is not a tamasic mind. Please understand. Tamasic mind is, I'm not going to get food, somehow it will come to me. No, it is not that attitude. It is, let me merge my mind into that divine, and whatever has to happen will happen. And this is how our saints and sages lived. That's why they didn't have any worries. How am I going to get this? How am I going to get that? This kind of concept did not occur in their minds. It didn't even become a thought in their minds, because they just immersed their mind in that supreme, and things started coming to them. This is how they lived. And that's why they were so free, because their prayer to God was always for God. It was never to God for something else. And that's where we make the biggest mistake in life, because we feel like we need that something else. But what you and I really need is God. Otherwise, we're empty, and we'll always be empty. So in that puja, that is what I should ask for. So that puja, we said this, an example is this Shodashopachara. And the nature of this puja is to ask for God, ask for qualities to get us to God. And how this is done is through these steps. And those of you who are in the Navaratri puja, You would have seen how we did, that first you actually tell God from your heart, you please come outside. From my heart, you please come and express in this vigraha. Vigraha means vigata graha. Graha means all these negative impacts. Vigata means it goes. That's why it's called vigraha. So you tell God, come in this idol, this vigraha from my heart. And then you start to worship that God as though that God or goddess is coming to the house. Huh? Offer them a seat, wash their feet, wash their hands, give them water, give them a bath, give them clothes, put some fragrance for them, turn on all the lights, create an ambiance, and then you say Archana. Archana means you say the names of that god or goddess. So, like how Lakshmi ji said beautifully, like when you want something from your mom, you say mom, then you say mom, then you say ma, you say it in so many, many ways. And so when we do this Archana, 108 ways we are calling God. We're saying, God, please come. Please give me vairagya. Please give me, bhakti. Please give me jnana. And we are worshipping God like this. And then after that, we also feed that God. And this is so powerful, that whatever naivedyam, whatever we make, we bring it to God, we offer, and then we eat. Nowadays, people are so worried that food is contaminated. It says organic, but is it really organic? And it's all, this is there and that is there. So many things are there in food. I tell you, the sure shot solution to everything is first offer the food to Bhagavan, then eat. We don't know, but that very shloka, that very name of Bhagavan purifies that food. That very name is a great purifier. There we are using vegetable wash and all of that. That's good also. But I'm saying our rishis have figured it out. I don't understand why we have to go out there and find new ways and means when in our very own Shastra, we already have this. You just take, I take my breakfast and I put it there and I offer, then I eat. Then I know it's pure, whatever it is there. So that thing you offer to Bhagavan. Then after that, you also do arati. Then you seek forgiveness. You do pradakshina. And then Shanti mantra. And before the Shanti mantra, you tell that form of God, from that vigraha, now you come back to my heart. And this is called puja. Now just see how beautiful this thing is. If I have zero relationship with God, zero, this is one way that I can start. And nobody said we have to do 16 steps. You don't have to do all. At least do 5 steps. At least you do some water, some chandan, some, even if you don't have flower, it's okay. You do some deepa, some dhupa, and then some naivedyam. That's enough, right? And some you offer praise, offer worship. That's enough. But at least it's building that connection with God. That is called puja. So when we use our whole being to worship that God in front of us. Now, slowly, Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi is going to tell us that this puja can be even bigger. Now, I won't elaborate on japa in dhyana on this shloka because again in the next verse he will take it up. Then I will elaborate there. But what I will elaborate on and I'll introduce a little bit is, he says puja can get to another level. What is that other level? You see, first is we see God as Ishta Devata. And so last week I had explained to you that importance of having an Ishta Devata, that form of God who is really dear to me. Because that is my connection, that is my goal. If I forget that goal, then where am I in life? And my primary connection is that with Bhagavan. When my primary connection is with Bhagavan, then only I can call myself a devotee. And when my primary connection is so steady and firm, then all my other connections are good. They're pleasant. So first I start with Bhagavan as what we know, Ekarupa. Ekarupa means one form that's very, very dear to me. I take up that form and I worship that form and I give everything to that form and I build a bond with that form. As I progress, what happens is I see God Aneka Rupa. Eka Rupa means one form, Rupa means form. Aneka Rupa means in many different forms. Many different forms. So, sometimes this was so petty, like how there's Vaishnavites and there's Shaivites. Huh? Bhagavan Vishnu is God, Bhagavan Shiva is God. There is all these arguments that this is only God, that is only God. And people have such small minds sometimes. And they say, my form of God is better than your God. Your form of God is better than my God, whatever. So that Ekarupa, it goes to Anekarupa, where let's say Ekarupa, I see Shiva. But in Anekarupa, I see that Shiva is also Krishna, is also Rama, is also Ganesha. So I'm not feeling that if I chant Ganesha's name, I didn't do Lord Shiva's name today. No, nothing like that, because that same Shiva you see in that other form of God also. So slowly, slowly, as I begin to expand, then my concept of God also expands. It's as my mind is expanding, the concept of God is expanding. Then what happens is, after I see God in Aneka Rupa, then I come to the beautiful form of God, which is Vishwarupa. Vishwa means world, Rupa means form. So God is the world. I see this whole entire world as God. From that one form to seeing God in many, many different forms, I see the whole world as God. Every single bit of this world is God. Every single person, being, creature, everything is God. The whole world is only God. And this is very beautifully seen in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11. It's the whole, how he says, Lord Krishna shows his Vishwarupa Darshan, and he has thousands of heads and thousands of eyes and thousands of arms and thousands of stomachs also. It will say all of these wonderful things. If you just read that chapter, that's one of my favorite chapters, because it makes you expand to see every single thing as God. After we get to that level where we see everything as God, then the mind slowly, slowly expands to Arupa, that God is formless. That actually these forms and names are nothing but a projection on that infinite Brahman or consciousness. Actually, God has no form. Actually, God has no form. But to come to that level, I needed to go through that form. I needed to relate to God in that way. And then I finally realized, look, God has no form. God is Arupa, because God is pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure bliss. Then that's not the end of it. When I slowly, slowly get to Arupa, what do I realize? God is Swarupa. God is my own self. God and I are one. The essence of God and I are one. That is the culmination of knowing God. That is the process that we go through knowing God. Now, please think, some people start right away with Swarupa. Does that work? It doesn't work. Because that Swarupa, they can't even see Vishwarupa. What Swarupa is there? Forget about it. So when you and I go through, there's a beauty in following a system. You know, there's a, when you cook something, you don't you chop first and then you saute whatever, then you cook. It's not like you cook and then you take it out and then you chop and then what will happen, God only knows, right? There's a beauty in the system that our rishis have provided us. So this particular puja, when we just talk about puja, in general, it is that Ekarupa Puja. That Ekarupa Puja, that building that connection. And I told you it doesn't have to be elaborate Shorashopachara Puja every day. Huh? It can be Panchopachara. It can be just five things. And I said five things: water, chandan, then dhupa, agarbati, deepa, light, and then naivedya. Just even five things. Just simple. That will build that Ekarupa. Then slowly I will go into Aneka Rupa, then Vishwarupa, then Arupa, then Swarupa. So in the next verse, Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi ji, he talks about God as Vishwarupa. And he says that is actually the highest form of puja. There is this one, Tilak, his grandson was asking him, he was a huge patriot in Bharat, and his grandson was asking him, how come you don't do daily puja? And he said, when you learn to do puja to 1,000,000 people, then you can stop doing your daily puja. But until then, you must do your daily puja. So this is how one gradually evolves.